I'd like to say a few things. That one, since the government of Kenya Kwanza took office 10 months ago, President William Ruto has engaged the international community and greatly succeeded in promoting Kenya as an attractive trade and investment destination. The net effect of this has led to an array of new opportunities that are having a positive impact on our economy. Last week, Kenya hosted over 10 heads of state and government to discuss new frontiers for the promising Africa Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. And just this morning, President Ruto met with the Ambassador Catherine Tai, the principal trade advisor and spokesperson on US trade policy. At the ministry headquarters, I have just signed a host country agreement with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that makes Nairobi the regional headquarters of one of the largest philanthropic organizations in the world. And this office, once it's open, will employ thousands of people. A lot of money will be circulating in Kenya through their programs. I've also held meetings with diplomats from the United Nations and other bilateral partners. In other words, life is going on smoothly and as normal. I'd like to say that to everybody that Kenya is still open and will always be open for business, because as a government we continue to position our country as a preferred trade, investment and tourism destination. The truth is that, however, these efforts are being derailed by economic saboteurs disguised as protest against the cost of living. It is good to understand that it is true. The issue of cost of living is an issue for discussion. It is true that things have been tough for the last 4 or 5 years since COVID and now with the Ukraine war and others. It is true that when I visited Europe with the president, some of the countries we went to were having riots and demonstrations as a result of cost of living, and that we had even to change flights because we couldn't overfly other countries where the transport sector had gone on strike because of issues of cost of living. It is true that there's been a shortage of food and flour all over the world. It is true that there's an issue of discussion between Russia and Ukraine about the flow of grain. It is true that the cost of petrol has gone up all over the world as a result of the war and because of the cutting off of fuel flow from Russia to Western Europe and the controls by the Middle Eastern country. It is true about the cost of living. But as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, when I go to all these countries, from the Caribbean to the Americas to everywhere, the cost of living is a discussion all over the world. It is not just an issue in our country. But it's a live issue. But the reality is that we are better off because we have a plan. And things may look tough now, but they are getting better and they'll be better. The economy and the people of Kenya are the ultimate victims of the so-called Maandamano. In quotes, Maandamano, because it's not Maandamano. We all know that we need to stabilize our economy, create new job opportunities for our young population, and this only happens in a safe, secure and stable environment, devoid of propaganda and political opportunism. It is therefore unfortunate, and this is very important, that on July the 14th, 2023, the spokesperson of the Office of the United Nations Human Rights, OHCHR in Geneva, issued a media statement on protests in some parts of Kenya in which he alleged, in quotes, widespread violence and unnecessary or disproportionate use of force. He further alleged that 23 people have been killed and dozens injured in the demonstrations. This statement was not only inaccurate but misleading and appeared to have been written in support of a propaganda campaign by people opposed to the democratic will of the people. The ministry has protested to the office of the spokesperson on his unsubstantiated statement. We will be engaging through appropriate channels to ensure that the international community is not sucked into conspiracies that are aimed at destabilizing our nations. Let me break it down. He talks about widespread violence. Where was the widespread violence? We just saw violence in some cities in Europe the other day, which you cannot even compare with what happened in a few places the other day. My grandmother my aunties were living life very well. You know, you talk about widespread violence as if Kenya was burning. Very wrong. These are language written by people here for them in New York. Talking about disproportionate use of force. We saw areas whereby there were no police at all, and people were destroying roads, burning things with no police presence, where they cannot say that they were incited or provoked by the police. And so they're talking about rebellion. There are about 23 people. Who are those 23 people who they say died? I'd like to know them, their names and others. So they're just throwing names and figures out there. You know, that is bad manners for an organization of such stature. That is really a high level of inefficiency and unprofessional work, because they need to do their own research before they come out issuing letters and statements. The violence acts by a few paid goons have been politically instigated by known architects of violence and therefore cannot be categorized as peaceful assembly as alleged by the spokesperson. They're not peaceful assembly. Far from it, what we have witnessed are violent protests with those involved carrying all manner of crude weapons. We have seen goons destroy a highway with no police around. That is not a peaceful protest. They are not protesting. There are no placards. There are no people shouting slogans. There are no people walking. They are destroying a highway with even no police. Nobody even stopping them. You know, nobody inciting them in terms of saying that they are being provoked by the police. And yet, when I talk about that, you know, that these are what you are calling, you know, demonstrations and peaceful assembly. There's nothing like peaceful assembly there. We are seeing a situation where our women, our mothers have been impacted by these violent goons. Most of them who have been given alcohol and drugs, you know, to go and make this, you know, wanton, to lead to this wanton destruction. Our mothers who want to do their business are afraid because of these few people who are basically being organized, because this is not about cost of living at all. This is about try to put political pressure, a form of insurrection for people to try to gain positions in government through the back door. You know, it's like you lose the World Cup, then you start organizing goons to start destroying the stadium so that you can be given half of the cup. It will not happen this time in Kenya. You know, we are a democratic nation and we know what they're doing. This has impacted on the lives of our students. Kenyans have so many students. We are trying to adhere to international standards of our what do you call it? The Sustainable Development Goal, the SDP, so that our children can get good education. We have very good education in Kenya. Yet they are being, you know, they are being stopped by this wanton destruction of property by a few people. The wanton looting of private premises, illegal obstruction of economic activities, and extensive damage of critical public infrastructure attest to the violent nature of these demonstrations, which border on economic sabotage, and therefore they warrant intervention by security agencies. So my international partners and friends, when you see our police getting involved to stop this wanton destruction of property, is because they have to do what needs to be done to protect the lives of people and property of Kenyans as per our constitution and as per the international law. Even the UN Charter has places where it says there's a limit when it comes to peaceful demonstrations. When they start destroying property, the police cannot stand by and watch. So when the police go and they deal with these people, it's because they are protecting property and lives of people. The government of Kenya endeavors to protect the rights of individuals engaged in peaceful assembly and peaceful protests, while at the same time maintaining public safety and order in line with the Constitution of Kenya as provided by the UN Declaration of Human Rights. Now, this is very important. Kenya is keeping a close eye on the current architects of the violence and looting experienced in the last couple of days, and will take appropriate actions consistent with the national and international obligations and according to our law. We also urge our international friends to closely, let me repeat this, we urge our international friends to closely scrutinize the architects of the insurrection and anti-democratic elements when they wish to visit their countries, and not allow some of them to go and taint their democratic principles. As we speak, Many people are still visiting Kenya. This morning, flights came in with many people. We are receiving many requests for official and state visits because they have faith in our country. As a government, we remain focused on ensuring that Kenya remains an attractive destination of trade, investment, and tourism. So what they're trying to do, thinking they're scaring people off, it is not working. People are coming to Kenya, and people will continue coming to Kenya because Kenya is a safe place and people are continuing with their lives. I wish to assure Kenyans in the diaspora that the government is committed to the welfare of Kenyans. I also caution them to be wary of fake and outdated videos that are not reflective of the current situation in the country. There is a lot of propaganda being peddled around, with old videos being recycled. There are some videos that have been circulating. Oh, people are arming themselves. Oh, people are burning. Oh, people are demonstrating. Videos that do not depict the truth. You know, they say this is Kisii. I've seen one video of stones. It's Kisii, Bora, it's Meru. The other thing, it's in Machakos. It's everywhere. Videos that are not even from Kenya that are being peddled around. So if you're in the diaspora, call your mother, call your grandmother, call your father, your grandfather, call your brothers. Get the reality about what's happening in your village. And you'll find that majority of those videos being circulated are nothing but propaganda by the architects of Azimio, who know they are fighting a losing battle because Kenya is a democratic country. I want to assure everybody that we are set, we are going on with business, na mbele iko sawa. Thank you.